Bit of the news on the US economy is a bit apocalyptic. Yes, we have hit an illustrious milestone, people. Yes, we have. The US debt has now reached, for the first time in a long time, 100% of its GDP. The last time that it hit this number was during and right after World War II. Let me get the relative chart here because it's very striking. It's very, very striking. I feel like that's bad. Yeah, it's pretty crazy that the last time we were able to hit this GDP to debt ratio was when we were fighting a world war, and now we're able to hit it with like record austerity, no social programs, and you know, just like nothing. There we go. Yeah, we were building stuff back here. We are not building stuff now. How does national debt affect the normal person? Well, I'll put it this way. The interest that we currently pay on our debt is in the ballpark of around $1 trillion a year. That's interest that the US government has to pay on the treasury bonds that sold out every single year, which is more than we spend on the Pentagon. So whenever you think about how much we spend in the military, we spend more on the interest to our debt. Not on the debt itself, just on the interest to the debt. In 100 years, all government spending will be Social Security and debt payments. Buddy, at this rate, we're not having a government in 100 years. That sounds like hyperbole, but I promise you it's not. This is mega, hyper, unbelievably unsustainable. It's apocalyptically unsustainable. There's no way that we cannot pay the interest on our debt. And we fucked over our ability to leverage our position as the global reserve currency because of the Iran war. The petrodollar's going under. There's a lot of economic leverage we're giving up the world around. What would happen if the US just doesn't pay? That's called defaulting on your debt, and it would be bad. Wild that it looked like debt was going to get paid off within the next decade or two under Clinton, then everything went to shit. Yup. 2008 financial crisis, quantitative easing, Obama. Yes, sir. Afghanistan, Iraq. Yeah, those are part of it, but like not so much. Again, the real killer here is monetary policy. Look, we began the Iraq War back in 2003. Look how small of a bump there is right here. The Iraq War was expensive, but like compared to quantitative easing, it's just a drop in the bucket. Monetary policy and over-financialization, along with not wanting to tax the wealthy, pretty much did it, you know? A lot of the debts to U.S. residents, right? So defaulting would fuck them too, correct? Well, defaulting wouldn't be bad because it would fuck over people who are benefiting from the interest on their treasury payments. Defaulting would be bad because it would collapse the global economy. It would be bad for higher order reasons than just fucking over the people who hold the bonds. Yeah, fucking debt hitting 100% of our GDP as we cut millions of people out of Medicaid. Classic. Actually, not classic. This is all pretty new. What really sucks is through quantitative easing, we basically spent like we did during the Great Depression and World War II, but instead of getting real things like roads, we built the tech sector and speculative asset industries. Yep. We spent more money than we spent during the entirety of World War II, but basically none of it went to U.S. infrastructure. Like quantitative easing led to an unprecedented wave of government spending. Like truly, like we could have built empires with that money, but instead it just fuzzled into nothing. Absolutely nothing. So everything's Obama's fault? Actually, the post-2008 quantitative easing probably fucked us up economically more than anything that Bush did, yeah. Obama was following in the footsteps of Reagan and a lot of the policies that he set in place, and Clinton cemented those, but the decision to use quantitative easing the way that he did and to enable, I mean, technically it's the Fed's decision, but obviously there's a degree of, you know, involvement there. Yeah, no, it's quite bad. Yeah, monetary policy, very understudied, very, very big factor in whether or not your civilization gets to continue into the next century. So what would have been the right thing to do instead of QE? I mean, it sounds like trite lefty shit, but like, I think that some degree of the bailouts were legitimate, but we should have nationalized those industries, just straight up. It's not even remotely controversial. If the government is going to spend like $50 bajillion propping up these institutions, the government should own them, nationalize them. Like that's not even like an edgy lefty socialist position. It's been done in other countries. We should have done that. All of the institutional leaders in those banks should have been sent to jail for the rest of their lives, but that's more of a punitive thing. Like, they wouldn't have been in power anyway. It's not like they would have kept their jobs. Just punishment, by the way. Yeah, but he continued their policies, Miss Haigu. So, like, agreed, but eh. Yeah. Stop bullshitting and admit it's your fault, Vaush. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Nope. 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 Yes. What's QE? It's to put it simply, parentheses, making sure I don't know what I'm talking about. The government printed the Fed printed a fuck ton of money in an effort to stimulate the economy. It's the money printer go burr. To try to keep the economy from going on a complete downward spiral after the 2008 financial crisis. We printed, the money printers went burr, and we threw a bunch of that money into the economy, which, again, it's kind of like an extension of Keynesian economics. The problem is that, like, when Keynesian economics were first put into practice in the 1930s under FDR, he used that money to build things, and this time we didn't. We just threw that money. We essentially just threw that money to the wealthy. I mean, there's a reason why after 2008 the number of billionaires increased, and the amount of money every billionaire had increased, like, momentously, like enormously. Total wealth of billionaires since 2008. Total wealth of global billionaires has experienced a massive surge since the 2008 financial crisis, rising from a temporary dip to a record high of 16.1 trillion by March 2025. They gained a huge amount of wealth. Look at that, man. Billionaire net worth as a percent of GDP from 2% in 1996 to 13% in 2025, roughly. We're blurring numbers here, but that's like a 6 times increase in 30 years. Do you feel 6 times wealthier? COVID pandemic? Well, the same thing happened then, yeah. Every time there's an economic crisis, the wealthy use it to consolidate. The only thing that can prevent this really is heavy government action. Otherwise, it's an economic guarantee. If everyone goes under and a bunch of companies go bankrupt and unemployment is high, unemployment being high means that companies have a lot of leeway when it comes to the standards of their hiring because people are fighting so hard for a job. And it also means that a bunch of assets are now basically free to scoop up, you know? It's like what Peter Thiel said when talking with Jeffrey Epstein in that email that got leaked, you know? The best way to be a businessman isn't to have, like, sweet deals you go after. It's to wait for the global economy to collapse, because then a bunch of assets go underwater and you can scoop them up basically for free. The only thing you need is to be wealthy enough to survive and still have money even during the global downfall, which you can't do if you're worth, a couple million. If you're worth a couple million, your businesses are probably going under during an economic crisis. That's a lot of money, but not by, like, global oligarch standards. But if you're worth a few billion, yeah, you can just survive the downfall, scoop up everything, and then when the economy inevitably rises again because your cronies are in office, making sure they do everything possible to keep the economy going up, you now own more than you did before. Yeah, same thing happened in the Soviet Union. Yep. Soviet Union collapsed. Everything in former Soviet Union, Russia, became worth exactly like $5, and then all the oligarchs scooped it up. The people with the assets necessary to survive the fall. So this is all according to plan? Yeah, the financial policies of the United States have always been dictated by the interests of the wealthy, but since 2008 especially, like it's been going very much their way, like super duper their way. Yeah. So the wealthy want to collapse the Soviet Union every decade to become wealthier. I need you to understand that what I'm talking about isn't a lefty conspiracy. They literally talk about it. There is a fuck ton of well-recognized economic and borderline, like, anthropological, that's not the right word, I guess. It just feels like it to me. Research on the post-2008 environment where, like, that's been the name of the game. The reason why all of these media conglomerates, banks, and so on, they capture all of their defunct neighbor. Like, this is a known policy. We know they're doing it. We know they want to do it. We know they're continuing to do it. It's not a conspiracy at all. It's not even a lefty thing. It's just describing reality. Anyway, we're getting there again. We're getting there again. It's going to happen again. I'm telling you. The problem is that, again, we're not using this money, this spending, to build infrastructure. We're just wasting it. So the next time a big collapse happens, the government isn't going to have the money to get us out of it. Like, When the Great Depression happened, FDR had some money to play with. He could sell treasury bonds. There was money to dig into. And likewise, in 2008, what happens in the next big crash? What happens when the AI bubble or the tech bubble collapses? The government literally cannot sell enough treasury bonds to make up for this. The total combined wealth of the AI bubble is greater than that of the US economy. Sorry, that might be a slight misstatement. I should say the total amount of money invested in the AI bubble is substantially greater than the discretionary spending of the US government. The AI bubble is like, how many trillions of it? It's 50 trillion. How much is it? Total wealth of AI bubble. Of the big eight, the magnificent eight? It's not 50 trillion. That's too big. It's a lot. I was overstated number. Total value of AI, total wealth of AI investment. I know it's higher than 1.6 trillion. Worldwide spending on AI is projected to reach 2.53 trillion in 2026. 2.5 trillion? Yeah, this is much more than the government can shore up. Here we go, 2.5 trillion. Thank you. Like if this goes under, the government literally doesn't have the money to shore it up. So like what happens, I guess, you know? Doesn't really work. Does Archrev have a point? He said QE was only this devastating because of Citizens United, which allowed bite-off politicians to prevent things from getting quietly fixed in the back end. Respectfully, I disagree. Politicians have been serving the interests of the same group of people pretty reliably since the Reagan years. There was more pushback before Reagan, but Reagan basically solidified it. Think of it this way. You know how much the media treats Trump's overwhelming victory like a mandate of the people? Reagan actually had an overwhelming victory. So think of it like that. All the fuckery that Reagan did with his economic restructuring, that was treated like, I mean, it was so influential that Clinton basically like ceded to him. Clinton was like, all right, we're doing that now. You know? Citizens United accelerated the process, but this was all kind of inevitable in a materialist sense, in my opinion. It was basically just a matter of how long it took to get to this point. But we're at the point now, so, you know. It's because Dems tried for a few years to keep running on a New Deal platform, but kept getting destroyed. Yeah, but, like, they could have done better. They could have done better. They could have done better. It's been a while since the Dems had some stones. Really, LBJ was the last time the Democrats, and even LBJ was cucked, man. But in a lot of respects, I think LBJ was the last time the Democratic Party had that fire in them. You need that fire. The Republicans have had that fire in them for a while because they want to rape children. They really want to. So like they've got that spirit, you know? They're like Luffy from One Piece, except instead of getting the One Piece, they want to fuck kids, right? That's the Republican Party. But the Democrats just haven't had that fire in them for a while. The 1-year-old piece, exactly. QE is a good tool. I don't get why you're hating it. Have you been listening to anything I've been saying for the past 20 minutes? I feel like I've been really clear on why I'm upset with our monetary policy over the past 20 years. Like I feel like I've really like not much room for misinterpretation here, but whatever, you know, whatever you prefer. Yeah, not great. Not great. Not good. Can we get much higher? Yeah. Can you talk about something interesting? I'm getting bored. I get it. I understand. It's not that exciting, but it's worth noting that, like, this is why it's going to happen. Like, Trump's undemocratic behavior, all of his, like, funny Truth Social posts and him putting his face on the banner that rolls down the side of the Bureau of Labor, those things are interesting, but history will focus not on that, or at least it shouldn't. This will be why it happens. So it's worth knowing why, you know. It's just a little bit wild that like the amount relative to the size of our, because you have to think of this in concrete terms, right? Relative to the size of our economy, we spent approximately the same amount of our collective nationwide resources, our total wealth, fighting World War II and recovering from the Great Depression as we did recovering from 2008, for which no one went to jail, and COVID. Like, all it took one nationwide shutdown and the following, not to say it was nothing, but, you know, compared to World War II, man, World War II and 2008, and we built nothing for it. Like, at least in World War II, we built things, man. We built, I don't know, tanks and planes and boats and roads and highway systems. We built the modern world, and we fought in a world war. But right now, like it's all just financial bullshit. Yeah, now we have to build the wall and the ballroom. It's time to finally start building things again. Yeesh. Would you say that financialization is more destructive in World War II? Oh yeah, yeah, like easily, 100%. Yeah, financialization over the past 30 years has siphoned more wealth from the world than any war in human history, easily. 100%. Yeah. In the long term, not in the immediate term. Obviously, in the immediate term, World War II did more damage than, like, you know, quantitative easing. But in the long term, the total siphoning of wealth from society, yeah, I think that this one's gonna do us in. It's gonna be, yeah, ask me after the great starving, okay? Do you think the stock market as a concept should just be abolished? Yeah, oh, yeah, 100%. I think it's like a monstrous tool. Not, again, and I want to be clear about this, not even for socialist reasons. Like, my opposition to the stock market isn't even about economic inequity or resolving the power imbalance between the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. It is just that as a incentive structure, it ends the world. I truly believe this. I think that it is like a machine that brings about the end of the world. And I think that it's multiple times brought us really close, you know? And that basically like 90% of what the government does is trying to prop up the stock market. Almost every federal government decision in some way or another is about keeping that consistent 3 to 4% GDP growth per year. And in spite of all the policy, all the weight and wealth of the US federal government being built to support it, like mountains and mountains being built to keep that line going up. Unfortunately, it doesn't actually work like that, and it will come collapsing down. You know, it's not stable. It's not even capable of being stable. This is from 6 years ago. Yeah. Top 1% of Americans have taken 50 trillion from the bottom 90%, and that's made the US less secure. It's the greatest extraction of wealth in human history. Genuinely, nothing else even comes close, really. Um, and it's like it would be so obvious if it was happening to any other country in any other economic system. Like that level of wealth extraction, if it was happening in a feudal system or a slave system with pharaohs or kings or emperors, it would be like really obvious. But thankfully, capitalism obfuscates the nature of this extraction by, burying it in a mountain of like, incentive structures that feel like they're not coercive on both sides. Like, actually, you choose to invest in your 401k, you choose to invest in the stock market, you voted for the politicians that always do the same thing that's pro-market no matter what. So they have blanketed everything in an obfuscatory, cloak of consent, which makes the extraction of wealth seem less evident, but historians will call it for what it is, in my opinion. Some historians will. Maybe.